Jaya Gopi Jaya Vallabha Giridhari Jaya Gopi Vallabha Giridhari Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari 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 Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Bhakta-vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. I was born in the darkness of ignorance with my eyes closed tight shut. My spiritual master has given me the torchlight of knowledge by which you can see that he's given us the torchlight of knowledge, so that is good enough. So by the mercy of the spiritual master, we're all given that shelter if we're following the spiritual master, that means that we can speak with the spiritual master speaking, and we're getting empowered only by the mercy of the spiritual master and the previous acharyas. Then obviously Sri Gaurnitai and Radha Kanta. And we're reading from the first canto, Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 18, text 38. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Tato Vyetyashramam Balo. Tato Vyetyashramam Balo. Gale Sarpa Kalevaram. Gale Sarpa Kalevaram. Pitaram Diksha Dukharto. Pitaram Diksha Dukharo.
Pitaram Diksha Dukharo.
Pitaram Diksha Dukharto.
Pitaram Diksha Dukharto.
Mukta Kanto Rurodha. Mukta Kanto Rurodha. Tato Vyetyashramam Balo. Gale Sarpa Kalevaram. Pitaram Diksha Dukharto. Mukta Kanto Rurodha. Tato Vyetyashramam Balo. Gale Sarpa Kalevaram. Pitaram Diksha Dukharto. Mukta Kanto Rurodha.
Tato Vyayashramam Balo. Gale Sarpa Kalevaram. Pitaram Diksha Dukharto. Mukta Kanto Rurodha.
Tato Vyayashramam Balo. Gale Sarpa Kalevaram. Pitaram Diksha Dukharto. Mukta Kanto Rurodha.
Mataji's.
Tato Vyayashramam Balo. Gale Sarpa Kalevaram. Pitaram Diksha Dukharto. Mukta Kanto Rurodha.
Tato Vyayashramam Balo. Gale Sarpa Kalevaram. Dukkhato
Pitaram Vikshadu Karto
Muktakanto Rurodaha
Muktakanto Rurodaha Tato Vidyashramam Balo Kale Sarva Kalevaram Itaram Vikshadu Vato
Word for word translation. Tataha. Thereafter. Abhyetya. After entering into. Ashramam. The hermitage. Balaha. The boy. Gale Sarpa. The snake on the shoulder. Kalevaram. Body. Pitaram. Unto the father. Viksha. Having seen. Dukha artha. In a sorry plight. Mukta kanta. Loudly. Ruroda. Cry. Ha. In the past. Thereafter, when the boy returned to the hermitage, he saw a snake on his father's shoulder, and out of his grief he cried very loudly. Please repeat. Thereafter, when the boy returned to the hermitage, he saw a snake on his father's shoulder, and out of his grief he cried very loudly. Purport by Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada.
Jai.
The boy was not happy because he committed a great offense, and he wanted to be relieved of the burden of his heart by crying. So after entering the hermitage and seeing his father in that condition, he cried so loudly that he might be relieved, but it was too late. The father regretted the whole incident. So, in this verse, it's quite simple, but you can think of a few things that we can relate to, right? First of all, when we know that we've made a mistake, we usually feel bad about it, feel really bad. But many times, this mistake, we can't take it back. It's over, it's finished, it's too late. So he and his father realized that the damage has been done, and you've already done this, but the only thing to do, and sometimes when you feel such a heavy burden on your shoulders and in your heart that you committed this grave offense or that something terrible happened, you just have to cry. I mean, that's just normal. That's just a way of releasing the pent-up frustration, the pent-up desperation, the feelings in your heart. And all over the Srimad Bhagavatam, all over the Chaitanya Charitamrita, it is described in many pastimes that either the Lord cried or his devotees cried. And the highest crying is, of course, if we can cry for Krishna. That's been stated by Srila Prabhupada, by Krishna, by Lord Chaitanya, that the highest crying is out of separation for Krishna, and you're just crying for him. Like my Guru Maharaj lately has been going over a pastime which happened with Lord Chaitanya when he saw Krishna at Kanainath Sala. It was just kind of like the gopis when they see Krishna and then he's gone. Or Radharani, when she sees Krishna and she's gone, and then they're lamenting. So Lord Chaitanya, in the mood of Radharani, of course, we know he's Krishna, but his mood wasn't thinking, I'm Krishna. His mood was thinking, I'm a devotee of Krishna. I want Krishna. So after Krishna then disappeared from the sight of Lord Chaitanya, he was asking everyone, where is Krishna? Where is Krishna? Have you seen Krishna? So this was after Lord Chaitanya had taken sannyas and had been initiated by Ishvara Puri and became in the state of bhava, complete separation and ecstatic bliss. But that's just one example. One of the ecstatic symptoms is also crying. So we cry, babies cry. It's just a natural response of relieving the pressure of this sadness that you feel in your heart. So another point that we can see that's been made in many of the verses beforehand is that King Parikshit, he's a pure devotee, he's a Mahatma. I was reading that Prabhupada was calling him a Mahatma, and that's a great devotee. And a Mahatma would never make an offense like that. And a Mahatma is always thinking of Krishna. So, as we've talked about in previous classes, this was all the arrangement of Krishna, that he lost it for a moment and just so happens to see a dead snake. How common is that? And he just, out of frustration, puts it in on the shoulders of the supposed deep in meditation. He wasn't sure if he was just feigning, if he was pretending, or if that was really someone that was deep in meditation. But regardless of the fact, he had many reasons: material thirst and being ignored, and he's the king of the planet practically. He's the biggest man on the planet, and someone's disrespecting him. But normally he would never have acted that way, in that situation. But because of the will of Krishna, this was no accident. Because of the will of Krishna, this has been, this is destiny, this is the prophecy, and this is why that the Srimad Bhagavatam is being spoken. Just like Arjuna, he was a pure devotee as well. He was above many of these lamentation and hankering. He was above that. But Krishna set the scene for this all lamentation to take place so that Krishna could explain to him the whole Bhagavad Gita, so that we could, many lifetimes, generations, millenniums afterwards, hear the words of Krishna and giving advice to the common man, to the common people, like all of us. So this is totally the will of Krishna. Let me read one little excerpt of Srila Prabhupada talking about the will of Krishna. This was on a morning walk in the botanical gardens. He said, "It is no question of accident. Accident can happen by the will of God. That is also. Behind that accident, there is will of God. Place, the proportion of energy, and ultimately sanctioned by God. Then things happen. Otherwise, there, Prabhupada, activity plus sanction of God. Two things. There are five," and then he goes on. But the point is that even a so-called accident is the will of God. Sometimes we will, sometimes a terrible thing happens, like the house burns down, and you're like, why would Krishna do that? Why? You even question Krishna. I mean, that's kind of offensive, but some of us may ponder, why would that happen to me, or why did that happen? And then years later, you realize, oh, it's actually good because we got some money from the insurance, we built a house, whatever. It's just, these things happen every day. This loss happens to us. These terrible things happen in this material world because this is a place of suffering. And even with the pure devotees enacting their pastimes, they had to suffer. Even Lord Ram, who was the Supreme Personality of Godhead, was put in such a desperate situation. It was all the plan of Krishna, of course, but even Lord Ram, who's the Supreme Personality of Godhead, was playing as if he was an ordinary man. And he was going through all of the, feelings so that the men could relate, that the mankind could relate to the problems of the Lord, and actually he could set examples so that the common men would follow the examples, as it's stated in Bhagavad Gita. By the actions of a great man, all the world pursues, his actions. So even Lord Ram had to endure the separation, all of the fear, all of the trauma in losing Sita. But that whole arrangement was his arrangement. It's very interesting, many of the things that happen in that whole pastime but if you go back to each detail, you can say, why did Lakshman even let her go? Why did he protect her? But no matter where you see the story or, that particular incident, no matter what, you can't blame anyone because it's all the whole pastime of the Lord. And so when King Parikshit was cursed, it didn't seem as if, so far we've read, that he didn't start lamenting. He basically just went home like an ordinary day. I mean, later on we'll see what he does, but when he went home, he was pondering, wow, what, did I really do that? And so another thing I wanted to talk about is that we should really, in an ordinary situation, this isn't a setup by the whole Supreme Lord, that even though everything isn't happening by chance and it is by the will of Krishna, still we have to think about what we say. We have to observe the austerity of speech. And in chapter 17, verse 15, it describes the austerity of speech, and this is the exact words of Krishna saying, austerity of speech consists of speaking words that are truthful, pleasing, beneficial, and not agitating to others, and also in regularly reciting Vedic literature. That's the penance of our speech. That's what we should be observing. Of course, we're in the material world. This is Kali Yuga. Things are bound to be said. But if we can prevent ourselves from making offenses, that's ideal. So we should think before we speak. There's these all over the place, people have shared, certain things like that on Facebook. Can't remember exactly, but there's things that you need to do about before you speak. Considering, is it here, it says here, is it beneficial? Okay, so let's look at the words that have just been spoken by Shringi. Shringi has spoken these words, and he has said, on the 7th day from today, a snake bird will bite the most wretched one of the dynasty, Maharaj Parikshit. We know that's not true. So he was speaking words that were not true, that were not pleasing, that were not beneficial, and of course they were agitating to others. Because if you think about it, Maharaj Parikshit, of course, he's not the type to be. We know he didn't go off in a huff or try to fight it. Actually, because this boy was a Brahmana and he had powers of a Brahmana, that his words came true. And Maharaj Parikshit, even though he could have counteracted it, even though he could have done something to avert this terrible karma that was placed on him, he didn't. Because why? Because a Brahmana had said these words. And this boy, although he wasn't mature yet, he was still powerful. And the rule is, when a Brahmin says something, it's true. So, so he didn't want to counteract or go against those words. He took it as the will of Krishna, as this was meant to be. So, Shringi was out of line. He was crying because he knew he was out of line. As a Brahmana, you know the qualities of a Brahmana. Truthfulness is one of the qualities of a Brahmana. And he realized he wasn't any of this. He wasn't pleasing, truthful, beneficial, speaking beneficial words, or he was agitating someone. He had just made a huge offense. So he realized it, and so out of this realization, he was feeling it, and he was lamenting and crying. So, you know, this is actually probably from Super Soul within the heart. How many of you can relate to feeling something bad? Let's say you just had an argument with someone, and you're not just feeling bad from what they said, but you're feeling something bad about what you said, or about how you reacted, or about how you behaved. That happens all the time. And I realized that happened to me the other day. I was feeling bad about something I texted. And then, of course, you can't really take back a text. So then I was feeling, oh my God. And I was feeling this thing in my stomach, like something, you know. And that, for me, I've been realizing over the years, that's our body's natural. That's a sign from Super Soul, saying, hey, something's wrong. Something's wrong, deal with it. If you were wrong, then you need to apologize, you need to do whatever you can to make it right, because we all make mistakes. Bhagavad Gita explains there's 4 types of mistakes in human beings. So, one of them is making mistakes, right? Is that it? Am I right?
4 defects.
There's 4 defects, thank you. 4 defects, and one of them is that we make mistakes. So we are able to forgive. That's another quality of a Brahmana. A Brahmana is able to forgive something that has happened, any offense that's happened to him. In fact, in the verse that we like to quote about the Shikshashtaka verse, what Lord Chaitanya says, that he says, Chinadapi sunichena tanorapi Sahishana amanina manadena kirtaniya sadahari. One should offer all respect to everyone and become more humble than a blade of grass. More humble than a blade of grass, offering all respects to others, but not expecting respect for oneself. So that is, time and time again, these things happen to us. And of course, it's kind of a joke in ISKCON where people might say, okay, Trinadapi, Prabhus, you know, everyone respect me. But actually that verse is meant for ourselves, so that we respect everyone else. And the verse is also for ourselves to remind us that if we feel someone has failed to respect us, we shouldn't be so bothered by it. We're supposed to somehow tolerate that as the will of Krishna, or maybe just see, oh, this person, they probably feel bad, or this person, he's not so advanced, or he's new, or, you know, just try to accept for whatever reason this thing happened. It's probably for my own purification that it happened, and I have to be forgiving that this happened. Let me just move on with my day, because you know what? I've also committed offenses. People also, I expected them to forgive me. So of course I'm gonna forgive that person. You know, we want to live together harmoniously in Prabhupada's ISKCON. He's made a world, a house in which the whole world can live. Literally, that's not that easy because there's many different personalities and they take you off, they rub you the wrong way, so many things. But if we just try to follow the previous acharyas, Srila Prabhupada, the Bhagavatam, these stories are here for us to learn that, oh gosh, that wasn't the right behavior. We don't want to be like Shringi. We don't want to commit offenses and something we can't take back. And of course, we're not brahmanas that are cursing people. In this day and age, that doesn't work and it's not recommended. We don't really have the powers to do that. But the point is that we should be forgiving, tolerant, all of these things if we're going to all live together. And sometimes we don't really value a person until they're gone. Like many times, like we have lost Vaishnavas in this community and other communities around the world, and we don't even think to go up to them when they're alive and say, hey, I so much appreciate your association and all the things you want to tell them. We somehow don't do that, but then when they leave their body, everyone comes forward to like extol all of their good qualities, and that's wonderful. But we have to try to appreciate devotees while they're still here, because as Krishna says, out of thousands and millions of men, nobody really knows about me. And then of those people that are searching for perfection, hardly one knows me in truth. And I feel this, I've always felt this kind of like in some ways Krishna feels lonely that we're not with him. And we've decided to live a life without Krishna. We decided to try to make it work here in the material world, but it doesn't work. Because, why? Because everything here is temporary, for one thing. There's so much suffering in the material world. And even if you have a great life, you have to give it up later. Even if you have everything in the world, you have to die. And it's scary for someone that doesn't know about the absolute truth and our destination. For someone who doesn't know all these things, it's a scary, scary thing. So we are so fortunate to have all of us, to have each other. Probably there's many wonderful, beautiful things about each one of us that maybe the other people don't even know. So it is a great opportunity we all have to take association of each other, of the senior devotees, and also try to give your shelter to the ones that aren't as senior as you. This is the process in Krishna consciousness. Oh, another thing I wanted to mention is that so in Krishna consciousness, when we do something bad, when we either fall down or commit some offense, the thing that we need to do is there's the atonement that Srila Prabhupada has recommended for us is, and I wanted to read it here. Okay, in a letter to Jagadish, in the 70s most likely, I don't have the date, but Prabhupada says, you atone for your actions by engaging in devotional service with great enthusiasm. Wherever your health is good, you should remain there and serve. So it's like, there's 2 points I see here, 3 points. Number one, if you've done something you consider bad, fallen, or a mistake, the way to make it better, besides apologizing, is devotional service with enthusiasm. Just like the verse in 9.2, Bhagavad Gita is, Krishna is saying this is the king of this is the king of religion, highest secret. This is the
King of knowledge.
The king of knowledge, and then he says, "We perform this joyfully. It's joyfully performed and everlasting." It's a beautiful verse. I didn't write it down this time, but the point is, serve with great enthusiasm. Krishna will forgive you. The devotees will forgive you. They know everyone makes mistakes. You've done something wrong. Okay, move on. We're here. This is like we're in the shower, right? It's like a dirty man gets in the shower. He's cleaning himself. We're cleaning ourselves in Krishna consciousness. Can you point a finger at a man in the shower and say he's dirty? Can you criticize someone that's actually cleaning himself and say he's dirty? No, because he's in the process of cleaning himself. We are in the process of purifying ourselves. So these little incidents that are, someone stepped on your toes, someone rubbed you the wrong way, these things are stuff we have to tolerate and realize this person is also in the shower. This person's also getting purified. We all have different things that happen to us. This is our special formula. This is our special thing we have to go through in this life, because each of us have our challenges in our everyday lives, in our karma. We have a series of challenges. Some things might be easy for some people, might be harder for someone else. But the lessons that we must learn, those are for us. However, we can share our lessons, just like Arjuna shared his lessons. We've learned from his lessons. We've learned from Krishna's advice what to do. So we have not only our own trials, tribulations, and the things we learn, but we're given the shelter of the spiritual master. We're given the knowledge from the Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita, from the direct suffering of others. We can see, oh wow, I'm going to try to avoid that mistake. Or, we're in the showers, we're purifying ourselves. So this devotional service is the number one way to atone for our mistakes. The second thing I wanted to mention about the point I just read is that the second thing was the enthusiasm. The first thing is itself engaging in devotional service. And the third thing is try to remain where you are. I mean, the grass is always greener. Everyone knows this. You don't have to be a devotee to know that the grass is always greener on the other side. But that's an illusion, because when you get to the other side, you're thinking, oh, but I missed the trees over in that one. There could be great things about the grass on this side, but they have all the trees, and that's amazing. Look at all the shade you got over there. So there's always pros and cons in this material world, the duality of life. We have to go through the dualities of life, and our minds are constantly hankering, lamenting. Hankering for what we don't have, lamenting for what we do have, or what we've done, or what we don't have. It's on and on and on. And a pure devotee, that's the difference between us and a pure devotee. They don't hanker and lament. They take everything as, this is by the will of Krishna. This is what Krishna has given me. How can I advance from here? How can I live my life and be satisfied with what Krishna has given me? This is another qualification. Being like Radharani, she's satisfied in all situations, and she's the topmost devotee. So if we can try to be satisfied with, as Prabhupada's pointing out to Jagadish, if you're healthy, just try to stay where you are. We can think of so many things wrong with I have these days too. One day I'm super happy. Oh, yes, I love it here. And I've been here for 30 years, but sometimes it's like, your mind goes through so much thinking, this other place is much better for me. I'll have so many friends there, and I'll get to do whatever I want, you know. But we're in a situation because Krishna's arranged that for us, and there's so many things we can do in devotional service to make our lives much better. So many things we can do in our own personal lives to make ourselves better. What to speak of where we are. Yeah, I feel, you know, some people say, why are you still at New Talavana? Oh my God. You know, like, I kind of see that as an insult, because it just makes you look like, oh, you're a loser if you're, you know, like, at that place. But that's not true. That's just a covered over reaction from people that really don't know the nectar of living at New Talavana because they haven't tried it or they haven't stuck it out. Or just like in a marriage, they say those who pray together stay together, and they have so many. You know, like if you get over the 7-year itch or the hurdle, you can make it work. And you talk to many couples that have been married for 50 years, and they have all the secrets of marriage. You know, for me, that's an interesting topic. I find it fascinating. But people in different cultures, they might have different things that they do. Or people that were born in different ages, they must have had things they did. People here, you know, nowadays, we have new things that people do in relationships that may not be so great. Like you'll see, I've seen a meme where a couple's at the table and, you know, the man is looking at his cell phone and the lady's just waiting to be looked at or talked to or something. So this could be a huge, you know, a huge problem in relationships today. If you're not giving the eye-to-eye contact, if you're not giving the actual attention and love that people need, you know, it's kind of an empty thing when you have like 700 friends, but how many of them are really your friends' friends? People, if you're suffering, they know. If you're suffering, they're there to help you. So there's a lot of illusions in this world, and but we've been given the secrets to cut this illusion, to cut this web of Maya away, and try to actually see Krishna. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is here, at New Talavana, here. Sri Gaura Nitai here, and Srila Prabhupada is here. And Srila Prabhupada has given us these words, and Vani and Vapu are non-different. Like if you think that being at the footsteps, sitting at the feet of Srila Prabhupada when he was on the planet is more important than hearing his words decades later after he's left the planet, then you're mistaken. Because these decades of words, these words that he left for the next 10,000 plus years, this is the real, this is how we can make real advancement from this. Let's see, there might have been one or two things other than, what time is it?
It's 8:17.
Okay. I just want to make sure there's a couple more things I had. Oh, yes, and I needed to make another point. In one purport I found of the same, 2 chapters ahead, Srila Prabhupada was talking about Maharaj Parikshit, and he was talking about that Maharaj Parikshit was a Rajarshi, a saintly king. So it's kind of a mix between, you know, a saint and a leader. It's like a mix between a Brahmin and a Kshatriya, but he was like a Mahatma, Prabhupada said. And so he's telling, because at the present moment there is no Rajarshi, all rascals and fools and animals are at the top of the government. They cannot see what is Kali. They cannot see. Because he is also one of the members of Kali. I mean, he's talking about the current president ages ago, but this refers to any time. Prabhupada's words are timeless. So we can put Trump into the equation and all of the people at the head of the government. How can they see? Therefore, the whole world is now being led by Kali's agent. So they cannot check. Here it is said, Nati dure kilas charyam yad ashit nimborame. Suppose if you are not in a healthy condition, you cannot understand what is unhealthy. You yourself cannot understand what is unhealthy. If you are not a scientist, you cannot see how the other thing is not scientific. If you are not a medical man, you cannot understand what is the disease. So Maharaj Parikshit, because he was a Rajarshi, he was following strictly the occupational duty of his forefathers, not forgetting even for a single moment. Therefore, he could see what Kali was. Kali means no. So Kali, this is why we follow the four regulative principles, because the age of Kali is found within illicit sex. He's found within gambling, within meat eating, and within intoxication. So this is why we avoid those four things and why we make those vows. Because when we do not follow these vows, we are letting Kali into our lives. And this very mistake that Shringi made was how Kali entered. Kali was entering already when Krishna left the planet. But the mistake that the Brahmin boy made, it said in a purport the other day, this was the way that Kali entered in. And then from then on, the Brahmanas became more fallen. They became, they didn't know about the scriptures. They were, more fallen. So, continuing on with what Srila Prabhupada had written. Now at the present moment, all over the world, Kali's influence is going on. Everyone, almost everyone, 99.9%. You cannot say cent percent because there are some saintly persons. So take it that 99.9% all under the influence of Kali, illicit sex life, gambling, intoxication, and meat eating. So how these people can see what is Kali? He is himself under the influence of Kali. Let's see. So the point is here that as devotees, we know what is Kali and how to avoid Kali. How to avoid letting problems enter into our lives by following the four regulative principles. This is, for me, having read that, it's like an aha moment. It's like, you might be wondering all these years, why am I following those four? What's the big deal? But the big deal is that Kali is present when you don't follow those. And he can totally enter and disrupt your life. And then what? If we don't have the shelter of the spiritual master, because when we stop following those four things and we stop chanting around, so we are not protected by the full 100% mercy of the spiritual master. So we are putting ourselves in danger by not following. So we just we should be so appreciative, grateful that we are sitting here as the grandchildren of Srila Prabhupada and as the children of his disciples and, able to live a life with so much instruction, so much shelter that there's no time at all that we should be feeling distress or lamenting, really, or hankering for something different, because we are in the situation that is the best for us right now, and it seems that it will continue to be the best thing. So, all glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to ISKCON, and all glories to Srimad Bhagavatam. I'll end it here. Any questions? Yes, Katya?
Yeah.
Yes.
You said that we are following regulative principles, so Kali couldn't enter
in our life. But Shringi, he didn't break any regulated principle. Like, why Kali entered in him?
Well, it's like I was saying before, that all of this was the arrangement of Krishna. We can't even fathom, we can't even conceive of why, because if we try to analyze it, then what you're saying is true. He didn't really break a regulative principle that we know. We don't believe that that's true because he was a Brahmin boy. He had a lot of powers. And it's a good question. But my answer to that is that we really can't explain why Krishna makes things happen. Like, it's not worth our time. We don't have the brains, we don't have the intelligence, we don't have the knowledge. But all we can say is that for ourselves, just to be on the level of human, I think it is the actual human being who should be inquiring into God consciousness. You should be following those four regulative principles. So, yeah. Does that answer it?
But they can't actually protect you for 100% from a Kali influence, right?
You mean for us?
Yeah. So
I think nothing is 100%. Nothing is absolute right here in the material world. I think, but if the spiritual master gives us instructions, by following that, we are protected. Now, if something happens to us, that is by the mercy of the spiritual master and the mercy of Krishna, because our lives here are never going to be perfect, because like the four things that we have to go through: birth, death, old age, disease. None of that needs to happen, because in the spiritual world, that doesn't happen. In the spiritual world, you're just there eternally. No birth, no death, no old age, no disease. So that's what our goal is. And to try to perfect ourselves enough to go back to Godhead. And if we don't make it, we get in a better position to take off back to Godhead in our next life. So it's always going to be tests, there's always going to be failures, and even though we're protected, so many things happen by the will of Krishna. So does that answer? Okay.
Can I answer the question in a different way?
Yes.
If you allow. So even after following all the regulatory principles, we are still under those four defects in the material world, and one of them is to make mistake. So that was the case with Srini. That's a different
question. Along those lines, it's interesting he made that point, because I was thinking in the Bhagavad Gita it says that every endeavor in this material world is covered with some fault, just as fire is covered with smoke. So every endeavor we make, there is the potential for some fault, some mistake. Fire generates, depending on the quality of the fire, there'll be less and less smoke. So, and on the royal road, there are accidents, Prabhupada says. And also, if you reflect on Grandfather Bhishma's statements to Yudhishthira Maharaj and to the Pandavas themselves, he's saying, when he's lying there with every inch of his body pierced by arrows, he's saying that, who can explain why these sinless, these friend, Arjuna's Krishna's friend, the Pandavas have no fault. Why did they go through all of this suffering? And he said that we cannot understand the plan of the Lord. This is all part of the plan of the Lord. And he himself at that time is feeling that people misunderstand why he fought with Duryodhana and what his intentions were. He has that one. He's feeling very grateful that Krishna's there, giving him his darshan, and he's feeling satisfied that the Pandavas and Yudhishthira are enthroned to take care of the planet, as rightly so. But he has this feeling of regret that all this suffering had to happen, and that people may misunderstand my intentions and my actions.
If anyone didn't hear that, he was just saying how all of this happens in a nutshell. He was just explaining that all of this happens, everything that happens by the will of Krishna, and we can't really understand it, but it's Krishna's plan.
Right.
Does anyone else have a comment or question, Mother Haridwani?
I was just thinking how, in relation to Katya's question, that there's people that follow the regulated principles but that aren't Vaishnavas. And the thing that distinguishes devotees in this case is the fact that, like Mercy Srila Prabhupada, in coming to some understanding, we know that we are doing these things or abstaining from these things in order to please the Lord. So instead of doing whatever we do to satisfy ourselves and our senses, we're doing it to satisfy the senses of the Lord. So it comes down like to the intention and the realization as well, that why you do what you do. So it's not that we're necessarily just protected by the fact that we, observe these prohibited things, but we're protected because we've taken shelter at the lotus feet of the spiritual master who's guiding and instructing us, and if our desire is to please him, then that's where the protection comes from.
I think it's such a great point. For anyone that didn't hear, Mother Haridwani was saying that it's not just, as I said, I was saying, I was referring to devotees, but I didn't make that distinction, which she said. If you're following the four regulated principles already, and you're not even a devotee, that's not giving you the protection. What's giving you the protection is that you're surrendering and trying to please the spiritual master and Krishna. So with that intention, and that intention is making you do it, and you have a mission and you have a purpose, right? And that purpose is to serve the spiritual master and Krishna all the way down. So thank you for clarifying that.
Well, Prabhupada did say that 99.9% population is under the influence of Kali.
Yeah, I just read that.
So there's also the factor of offenses. And in this case, he committed an offense. But not that was due to his immaturity. That's all.
Jesse?
Yeah, I was just going to ask, will you give class more often, please?
Well, she's,
It was a really nice class.
Thank you.
yeah, it was great.
I vote.
Hare
Sorry,
Krishna.
Krishna posted. What came to my mind, I mean, I could be wrong, so a couple of things that came to my mind is Srini, he had anger, he was very angry. And to me that would seem like a fall down in terms of the Brahminical culture and the whole way a Brahmin should act. So by that act of anger, to me, would help me realize that there's a reason why Kali is coming in with all those things.
Okay, that's a good point.
What came to my mind was when you were talking about crying, I can't remember where it might have been Bhagavad Gita, but Prabhupada was making that comparison that in the material world we have crying, but the crying is under the influence of the modes of ignorance, passion, and that kind of thing. When Mother Yasoda was chasing him, and he was getting caught, and she saw that stick, his tears were coming. Prabhupada made the point that this wasn't out of the material way, it was bliss, total bliss in that way, that the crying. So yeah, those are the things. And thank you. Yeah, you speak with my class.
Yes, John?
If you haven't picked the spiritual master yet, is Prabhupada the spiritual master?
I think that's one of the points that Shureshwar Prabhu might be explaining. But yes, for all of us, Prabhupada is our spiritual master. He's our Siksha Guru. He's the one that founded the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. And if we follow his instructions, yes, we can be Krishna conscious. But our process by the parampara is ever since Krishna, there's been a guru for that next generation. So it is important to have a living guru that can just tell you, deal with some of the questions you have, things like that. You can have many Siksha Gurus, but you should have only one Diksha Guru, which means the actual initiation process. But you can actually get instruction. Instruction coming from other people means Siksha. So as far as your question is, you were talking about when you get initiated?
No, I'm not initiated.
Right,
But
so,
I'm not going to undergo the process for a little bit, but
Right.
at the present time.
at the present time, Srila Prabhupada is the person that you should be chanting his pranam mantra and considering this is my guru. Until you're ready for initiation, then you should be thinking, who's going to be my guru that's living? Who can instruct me? Who can I take initiation from? So that's what you need to be thinking about.
And that person connects you with Prabhupada.
Right. He's linking us. That the living guru right now is linking us to Srila Prabhupada and the Parampara. So that's why it's very important.
You know, that point you made about, it was a really nice point about someone sitting at Prabhupada's feet when he was here and hearing decades later his words. There's no difference. And actually, in some cases, it might be better because sometimes you could be sitting right at the spiritual master's feet, falling asleep.
Yeah, that's better. Vani is actually better.
Yeah, that's what Prabhupada always emphasized, Vani over Vapu.
Because Vapu could last a second or two or a minute or a day and it's gone.
And you may not even appreciate it when you're there.
Or you may forget.
Right.
But Vani, the instructions are here for us, for eternity. Maharani?
Since we're on the topic of crying for Krishna, there was a quote, this is really true. Prabhupada says this in certain places. So someone posts this in the WhatsApp or somewhere. And then there is a clip of Gaur Govinda Maharaj. He is so intense. Somewhere he's giving class, all he's saying like, cry for Krishna, cry for Krishna. And then there is another clip they found, I think it's Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj. He is literally crying the whole time in this video, you know, singing the Jai Radha Madhava and all these things, you know, just crying like anything. You know, they put these two together and post it and send it to people. So if anybody have seen that, it's just crying for Krishna was like really amazing. When I saw that, it was heavy, you know.
I think it's, I have two comments to make on that. Crying for Krishna, that's our goal. But sometimes, I've heard for Madhyam Adhikari, if you have any type of ecstatic symptom, or for an Uttama Adhikari, if you have some kind of ecstatic symptoms like that, you should try to check that, because otherwise it can be seen as a sahajya type of performance, which when you go to the holy dhams, sometimes you see people just kind of like faking it, like and then next thing you know, they're rolling on the floor, or they're dressing like Krishna or something, or they're a man and they're dressing like a gopi. And so we try to, it's good that we feel these things, but I know that Prabhupada, sometimes you can't control it, it just controls you, but in general, we're supposed to check I'm not speaking for myself, but I'm saying when you get advanced, you should try to check that. That's what I've heard.
Prabhupada, when he saw Gornitai in Atlanta, and he could not control his emotions, so he ended the talk.
Yeah.
Thank you, and got up.
Prabhupada just ended his talk when he knew he was too ecstatic he didn't want to be showing all these symptoms, so he just ended the class. But some of the symptoms are quite obvious, like you'll see tears, or in some people, tears. Sometimes your hairs stand on end. If you hear something like ecstatic, your hairs will stand on end. So we can have ecstatic things. The goal is to cry for Krishna, as these gurus were doing, but it's not a regular scene. So I think once in a while that does happen. Jai, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Ki Jai.